bunch of nerds sit and ramble about video games.
Dun, 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 dun.
Wait,
Keep going.
I need the chair.
Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Crotch level. What's this crotch level with Chase? Oh, I thought you were doing that gesture has to be like, look, my dick's near his face.
Oh, I would need to sit there. Damn it.
Grab the chair.
I will move.
To be fair, that is very much a joke that you would make.
Oh, what wouldn't be?
You were just talking about shoving your dick in his
Oh my god. Welcome to the podcast.
Not my dick and not his ass.
A different dick and a different ass.
A tale for another time.
Did you know the topic is Zelda?
Could you tell? From that banger of an opening?
Which you know.
So guys, it's been a while since we've all been in the same room together.
Yes, it has been.
We just, I think the Strikers versus, well, mentioning it here now, it's going to have to go up first. But,
You're like, I created an order.
but, yeah, that was fun to do. That wasn't chaotic.
Not
Incarnate.
at all. It was
chaos
perfectly
incarnate.
smooth. No issues whatsoever.
No technical fucking Wii issues.
No brotherly frustrations.
But yeah, I think we should talk about some Zelda.
Yes, we should.
Which I think you guys will take the helm on this one because I can just kind of chime in a little bit here and there.
Well, let's see. Because let's just go ahead and start with, what is Marcelo's Zelda background?
I played a bit of Ocarina, a small tiny bit of Majora, a little bit of the very first Zelda on NES. Still haven't touched Link's Adventure of Link, even though Wes bought that for me years ago. And I've seen a little bit of Skyward Sword, seen a little bit of Twilight Princess, and I've played an okay chunk of Breath of the Wild, but I haven't beaten it yet.
Your next one.
Very sporadic.
Okay. My first Zelda was Wind Waker. I beat that. I actually 100%ed that game. That's like one of the few games I've actually 100%ed.
Nice.
I didn't quite like it at first, but then, like, I don't know, something just kind of like, you know how you play Dark Souls and like you're just having a shit time, and then just within like a certain hour point or something, just something clicks and it's like, oh my god, I love this.
You've been abused enough that you...
Stockholm Syndrome is taking over.
No, sometimes things are just a slow burn. It just takes, you know, you're like, you're just not sure, and then as you dabble in it more and more, you just, you get a taste for it.
Unlike Marcelo, I've actually also beaten Skyward Sword.
It's because he borrowed it from me.
Yeah, and then I played up to the Goron village in Twilight Princess before it kind of just stopped. I don't know why. I have completed Breath of the Wild.
Nice.
Even got like some of the extra content for it because I just had such a fun time with it. And then I played a little bit of like the first inside the Deco Tree in Ocarina of Time. I fucking hate the N64 controller, and that is my Zelda journey so far.
My first game ever, not even Zelda, was Mario 64. Followed shortly thereby, Ocarina of Time was my second game ever, which is obviously my first Zelda game ever. My Nintendo 64 is what got me into gaming, and it's what got me into Zelda. And so I started with Ocarina of Time. Of course, I played Majora's Mask. I'm a big fan of those in the Nintendo 64 era. I understand your complaints with the controller, for sure. Obviously, I have less of them because that's what I grew up on. But even I recognize that controller is stupid.
Yeah, oh yeah. Fucking put a fucking giant ass chode on that controller and thought, like, we can
if you hold the two sides, how the hell do you reach anything? If you hold the middle, why is the left one even there?
Yep.
Pretty much. So most of my experience, I've played those particular two many times over. I've beaten Skyward Sword multiple times. Twilight Princess. Pretty much all of the 3D Zeldas I have completed completely. As for the 2D Zeldas, I've played the majority of them. The only one I've probably beaten about half of them. Some I just touched. The only ones I don't really have any experience with at all are the Oracle games.
Yeah.
I haven't really played much of the Oracle Seasons or Oracle of Ages. Outside of that, though, I have at least some experience or have completed pretty much because Zelda is just like my jam, man. It's my jam.
Have you done the other Wind Waker-esque entry games like
Spirit Tracks and
Four Swords,
Phantom Hourglass?
Minish Cap?
Oh, I did not.
Of those
Yeah.
ones.
I actually, excuse me. Spirit Tracks is one of the few that I never managed to get.
Okay.
So Spirit Tracks is another one that I haven't played. But I did have Phantom Hourglass. The 3DS ones are interesting because so much of the control is based on the stylus. Phantom Hourglass is not a bad game, but boy, is it kind of hard to play with that stylus. I tried because I got all the way through it, and I remember a couple years ago, I tried to get back into it. I'm like, I just can't bring myself to play this game. The stylus is just tough, which is one of the reasons why I just never got into Spirit Tracks. Because I was like, I don't want to play on this DS anymore. So not really a fault of Zelda. It's just a fault of how they made it for the
DS.
DS, exactly. Yeah, but yes, I am familiar with them.
Okay. Where'd you like to go from here?
Well, let's see. We can talk about our favorite one. We can talk about maybe its influence on games. We can talk maybe about different like the puzzle elements mixed in with the adventure elements. I mean, all kinds of things.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of different elements to Zelda. It's one of those things for like Nintendo. You know, Mario has always been the main face, but if Mario was not there for whatever reason, it would probably be Link. It's
For sure.
Their next flagship title. And it's just so much, and it's funny because it's such a different game altogether, like Mario, and Mario very heavily on the platforming, of course.
Oh yeah.
And of course, depending on what game you're playing, it has different elements, and it spans so many spin-off titles. Where Zelda doesn't have nearly as many spin-off titles. You know, it has a little bit. It has like Link's Crossbow Training.
I was just going to mention that, actually.
Right, that's the one that first came to my mind because it came with Skyward Sword, I believe. That or Twilight Princess, but I want to say it was Skyward Sword.
Well, it mainly came with that peripheral.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because
around the time of like.
And of course, there's Hyrule Warriors and
a
couple others, but.
Hyrule Warriors was cool.
Yeah.
Which haven't been those either, but.
No. Marcelo got me.
Age of Calamity.
Yes, Age of Calamity for Switch, which I'm still in the middle of playing.
Yeah.
But let's see. Well, I guess we'll just start with the one that we all know, Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah.
And then we'll work from there.
Okay.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild is just like, it's one of my favorite games. It's not my favorite Zelda, but
it's one of your favorite games.
Yes, it's definitely one of my favorite games.
It's not surprising because of how many 10 out of 10s critics gave that game. I mean, it received such insanely high praise across the board. I remember I bought that day one. Because I bought the Switch on launch day, and I got Breath of the Wild with it. I got to Target at like super early in the morning before they opened. They're handing out tickets. You know, they had like 42, I think, at the site that I was at, and I think I was like number 30 something because there was already people in line. So, and then I got the red and blue one.
Oh yeah,
nice. I think I just got the standard one. I got mine at GameStop, if I remember right.
No, if I were to say what aspect I really like about like Breath of the Wild is like they got the world building like so fucking
exploring in that game is really fun.
No, it is like, and there's so many goddamn secrets in that game.
Except when it's raining and you're trying to climb a mountain.
I mean, they have to make some parts that you have to be like, okay, How do I get around this adversity?
I'm gonna climb that mountain. I don't give a shit if it's rain or snow
Let
or
me take
sleet.
out my-
I'm getting up there.
Let me take out my
No!
let me take out my metallic sword.
Oh yeah, the lightning bolts.
Oh, yeah.
My armor.
Yeah,
Learned
no,
that the hard
like,
way.
That's like one of the
Breath
worst
of the
feelings.
Wild was such a different take off of, because of course that was kind of the whole purpose, is just trying to, because the formula of Zelda had been going on for so long at this point, you know, because obviously they like to compare it to Zelda 1, which is kind of just like, here you are, go at the very
Kind of,
beginning,
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much, right? You if you're crazy enough to not even walk into that cave, you'll just be like, I don't know how to fight things.
I was like, I can't fight. Man, this game's hardcore.
Where's the sword?
I saw a sword on the cover. It has to be here somewhere.
How was I supposed to know there's gonna be an old guy in this cave just ready to hand his sword away?
No, that's what I like about it, though. The fact that they come out and they go, all right, well, our inspiration for the new one is Zelda 1, and that probably threw people off and went like, what's that mean? And seeing just what they did with it. Because, yeah, that is, I want to say, calling back just earlier to, like, my experience with Zelda and how I just kind of half dipped my toe into different types of Zeldas and never really finished one.
Because your opinion of them at first was really not that positive, I think.
The reason why was because the games I grew up with were games like Crash and Spyro, where they're platformers, they're explorative games, more so with Spyro being a little bit more open world, quotes on that, but, you know, more of a 3D environment to run around in, not like Crash, really.
Yeah.
But it's so straightforward. You can have the dragons talk to you, but you can skip them, like, with a button press. And then you find out
back to the game.
And naturally, you saw too, because you're playing Reignited on PC, you saw in the first homeworld of the first game, nobody tells you how to jump and glide right then and there. There's that little hill, if you remember the little hill, and you can just teach yourself how to do it. That's awesome. Like, intuitive world building and storytelling and tutorials built into the land makes it feel more natural and gives you the courage to be like, I learned how to do that. No one had to tell me. The game didn't push me to do it. I did it. This is how this mechanic works. Now I know. And Zelda, for a while there, once it went into 3D, started to be like, we're taking you through the specific course of a story where you got to talk to people, listen, do tasks for them. And it felt very anti-game to me for a while there, because I was like, this doesn't, and then you get lost, and then you gotta remember where a thing is. I remember it took me a while when I really buckled down and focused on Ocarina, where to find Zora's domain, because it was kind of weird, and not that the game told me. It was one of those moments where the game didn't tell me, so I was trying to find it, but I felt like I had checked everywhere, and I just didn't know where it was. Found it on a whim, because I was like, oh wait, follow the river, water, Zora, duh, check it, there it is. Oh, okay, it's this little tiny area on the map that I wouldn't have otherwise seen.
Sorry about the plane. I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, I forgot to close the window. But, they can definitely hear that. Should we let it go, or should we just keep talking over it?
Because you can just cut that part out, probably. Just snip over it. Or you can just listen to the airplane.
Look at some ASMR for you guys.
On an off topic, when I was little, I wanted to be a pilot.
I remember you offered to take me on a little helicopter ride once. We never did it, though. This was some odd years back.
I was gonna say, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, you totally were like your dad got access to it through someone else or something like that. Something like that. And you were able to go on it, and you offered...
I didn't go on a helicopter.
Well, you offered for me.
I don't remember that.
Are you sure that's not a different friend?
No, that was Chase.
No.
Anyway.
Okay, well, but now that it's gone, a lot of Zelda games oftentimes have that, like, intro sequence. Like, in Wind Waker, you're on the island.
Oh, yeah.
Right? In Breath of the Wild, you're on the, I don't even remember what it's called, the, like, isle. It's like that, you're up, it's like a giant fat pillar, and until you get, like, the first 4 shrines done and get your first abilities, then you get the glider and you can start exploring. In Ocarina of Time, you have to start out in the, the Deku Forest, and then you have to get your sword and shield, and then go to the Deku Tree.
Because I don't...
And Majora's Mask, you start out in Clocktown. It's a very normal thing for Zelda to do.
Like an intro stage,
There's an
as it were.
intro stage, exactly. Yeah.
As it were.
Yeah, and then it opens up a little bit because, because, like you're saying, is because there is a lot of like, go here and then do these things. You know, it's not just constant playing. It's a bit more complicated, and you got to remember is that was a really complicated switch to 3D back in Ocarina of Time. So
I mean, sure,
they were probably like, oh, hell, how do we teach people how to play 3D games and still have it be fun, right?
Yeah.
Where now it's so intuitive, it's not really necessary, you know?
Yeah,
but
no.
back then they were like, fuck, what do we do?
God, like, I've seen a lot of crazy things that people do with the mechanics in Breath of the Wild that I just never knew that you could fucking do.
Oh, I watched YouTube videos and
Just
stuff.
trick
people,
shots.
Just trick shots, freaking just
they're launching
skip to the
themselves
end.
across the
Yeah.
map on like
Across
objects. And
I was
stuff.
showing Victor some of those
It's
videos.
just like,
not too long ago.
god damn, like, your imagination has, like, it doesn't seem to have any limit in that
It makes
game.
me wonder how much of that was intentional and how much of that was just,
People exploiting shit and finding it out. Yeah.
Oh,
look
shit.
how good developers we are.
Because speedrunners are infamous for exploiting shit and using it full force.
Yeah.
It's one of the only Zelda games I've seen really
Zelda actually
that.
has quite a thriving speedrun community. Even
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time, if you go to Twitch, almost all of their, like, if you look at who's streaming Ocarina of Time, it's either one of two things. It's people speedrunning the game, or there's a ROM hack where it randomizes the entire game. All the chests and stuff are different, so every time you play it, you have to go find like everything.
Yeah, I'll see. Yeah, I'll see those on Twitch every so often.
But yeah, Breath of the Wild is such such a change with, like we were saying, it's
Here, you guys talk. I'm closing the damn window.
Okay, it goes back to like I said, the Zelda 1 era where, and pretty much, especially the 3D, but even in 2D, like starting from basically A Link to the Past. You know, it's like there's an order to the dungeons. It's like you go to this one first, and that one, and that one, and every time you go in, you get a new item, which allows you to do get to the next dungeon, do more things, complete the one you're in, and do some stuff on the overworld that you know gives you some practical and maybe some more combat abilities. Where in Breath of the Wild, it's like, here's a slate, all your abilities right at the beginning. That was another big change. That was actually something I wasn't a huge fan of, because I actually kind of like the, like, almost like Metroidvania-esque kind of progression where you get farther, you get this new thing that lets you do all these new things, right? Obviously, Zelda's a 3D game, you know, but in that aspect, it has a little bit of a similarity, I would say.
Yeah.
Where in Breath of the Wild, it's kind of like a double-edged sword for me, where it's like, yes, you can go anywhere. You see that mountain, you can go there right now, minus getting through the very, very beginning first. And getting your glider.
Assuming that you already passed those initial shrines and gotten the glider.
But the equipment upgrades were gone. Because you got all at the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you can upgrade your bomb, but it's still a bomb.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
All of your tactical ability is given to you pretty much instantly.
Because okay, what I like about it, I think one of two things. One, again, with this formula developing with other 3D Zeldas, where they do get a new item, start using it immediately, because now you're going to start coming across challenges that are built around that. Multiple games had been doing it. So they maybe wanted to break away from that, and because Zelda 1, again, that being Breath of the Wild's inspiration, was more so, if you can buy some of this stuff, sure, go ahead. Everything you can do with it is right there. How you use it is going to be where the challenges come from. The challenges are very, like the exploration, is open to however you want to approach them. That is like the definition of just freedom, open world, like you can do anything. Why do you think people are copying that now? Because it did so well in that it succeeded exponentially in that way.
Copying. Talking about like Genshin Impact.
Immortals
like
Phoenix Rising.
Yeah, a couple examples of that.
I mean, even Sonic, the new one's looking a little bit more like open world or whatever, and you got the character standing on the
new
cliff.
Kirby game.
Kirby. Pokemon Legends, Arceus.
Yeah.
But
not that like Zelda made the whole overworld
Oh,
We're only
certainly
kidding, 'cause, of
not.
course,
Which
that
I think
genre's
is,
been around for a long time.
on the
even
other
before
hand, it's
Zelda.
ridiculous to be like,
Yeah.
oh, it's just Breath of the Wild clone. Like, no, they're trying to, maybe they're trying to mimic how Breath of the Wild approached it,
Yeah.
but you can't fault Nintendo and therefore the game itself for masterfully giving us an open world experience.
Yeah, and then like it just what I liked about Breath of the Wild 2 is just like it just felt like a very classic adventure once you kind of left. It's just like, oh man, there's a desert right there. I want to get to it.
Yeah.
Oh man, you know what? I don't feel like I'm equipped to go there right now. I'm gonna try a different route, and like you're just
And you
exploring
can.
the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. That is one cool thing about open world games like that. It's one of the reasons why I'm a little excited for Elden Ring that's coming out.
Oh,
Yeah, that one too, yeah.
Quickly. As same thing. It's like one of the downsides to linear games. This is not just Zelda, just games in general. Is if you're having trouble with a particular challenge, you can't skip it. You have to keep working at it,
Yeah.
or else you can't get any farther.
Progress, yeah.
Where in open world games, you're like, oh, shit, this is too hard for me as my play style. I'm gonna go do something else for a little while, and then when I feel more comfortable, I'll come back to it. Right? So it allows the game to be hard, but easier at the same time.
Because it teaches you,
Yeah.
like, what you need to do without anyone telling you, without the game having to push you in a certain way. It's showing you its difficulty rather than just forcing it upon you. Because you have to take climate into consideration. You have to take the weather into consideration. It's not a joke that if you have on metallic armor or you've got your big sword out, you're going to get shot in the rain.
A lot of games, like the Elder Scrolls, for example, as you level up, the world like scales with you in difficulty. So you never really feel like you're getting stronger because everything's getting stronger next to you. Where in Breath of the Wild, if I start out and run into a Lionel, oh well.
Oh yeah.
Too true.
Actually,
Too true.
I was actually gonna say like what, because this is actually will go into my next point. Like what was like in Breath of the Wild there were some big hurdles. Like the first big hurdle that you kind of just like, all right, I want to master this. The first one was like the Lionel on top of Zorro Mountain because we had to get the lightning arrows, and it's like, what the fuck is a Lionel? And then like because I accidentally bumped into like, I have to fight that thing. I tried fighting that thing once. I accidentally stumbled upon it. It's like, what the fuck is that?
I think the first one I fought, where the hell was it? It was, I can't remember. It's been a while since I played. It was like it's like a ravine where like the river goes between like two giant cliffs, and at the end there's a memory, and then right past it there's a field, and there's a Lionel in it with some trees. That's the one that I ran into first. I was like, I was looking at it from a distance, like, what the hell is that?
Right,
and the thing sees you from so goddamn far.
No. Yeah, no, like that. Like I fought like that first one's like, I fought that one like a total bitch. Just like hiding behind like he's not gonna see me. He's not
trying to
gonna
climb
see me.
trees.
Here's the cool thing. Again, there is this approach to it that the game allows you to do where, again, depending on how you play, some way or other you have to learn how to fight certain enemies depending on how you play. You can pick them off from afar, but you got to always be on the move to keep that distance because he's going to come after you.
All right, wait. Actually, I don't know, Chase. I don't know if you know this. You know, like near the starting area, once you kind of glide off, there's a Lionel right there in like the mountain areas. It is a zebra Lionel. It's like the hardest fucking Lionel.
And it's like right off the...
It's right off. You can accidentally bump into that thing.
But here's the thing. Yeah, no, so going back into my points, with enemies such as Lionel, if you're under level, you can still fight it and win, but you need to like quickly learn the tactics of parrying,
it's hard
going
to get in there.
ducking
It's like
out.
in that like you go off to like near the arena, like you know, like go into the grasslands where you're kind of supposed to go. It's to the left. It's actually an old arena, and there's like some high level
Coliseum.
Yeah, it's
thing.
the Coliseum
it's at the very bottom. Yeah,
that one's infamous.
And then and then like there's corruption there, and then there's just like a fucking high amount of high level enemies surrounding it, and it's just like right in the fucking middle.
Actually, I can't remember if it was a patch or part of the DLC. It was one or the other, and there was an update where you know how you can fast travel across the map as you find stuff?
Yeah.
Well, it allows you to put down one custom point of your choosing. I think it was probably in the DLC pack. You can put down on the map like...
Yeah, I remember.
And I put one right at the top of the Coliseum. That way, whenever I needed Lionel weapons, I could just go... and then I could fight him.
Yeah, no. Like, yeah, no, one of the things is like, alright, I learned the parry system. I want to learn how to parry a Lionel to make this thing my bitch. And then, the first one I fucking, like, I got, like, closed match 2. It was freaking cinematic. So, you know, like, you're on top of the mountains, the snowfields, like, right on near, like, the frozen lake and shit. We're like, I don't remember the colors of the Lionels. It was like a second high-tier Lionel. Like, I know they go, like, from brown with the red mane to, like... Isn't there a blue one? Or, like, a white one, and then, like, a zebra one?
Yeah, like a silver one, I think, is...
Yeah.
And then they have a... Yeah, and then if you play Master mode, I think there's a gold one that's even stronger.
Yeah, no,
Jesus.
like, this one was, like, a zebra one, or a silver one. I think there's, like, 2 of them up there. Over there or something. I don't remember. Like, it's really hard to kind of, like, because it's been a while since I played, like, Breath of the Wild. I have been having thoughts about replaying that game very recently. And I went in there with my horse and just try to, like, freaking beat it while on my horse. It killed my horse. I named my horse Jasper, like, Jasper!
No, not Jasper!
You bastard! And then, like, I fought him in one-on-one for 5 minutes. I was
Shadow
just
of the
parrying him.
Colossus.
I was down on 1 health, but I killed him and got his shit. It's like, that's for Jasper, you motherfucker!
Another big change from Breath of the Wild from the more traditional formula is the way they handled puzzles and dungeons. Of course,
Yes.
Not only are there only 4, and they're kind of short compared to the traditional styles and the other ones, you don't even have to fucking do them.
No, I think literally everything but getting to Ganon is optional. Because you can go to Ganon as soon as you get off that main, like, island, little cliff part that you're on, that you start on. You can go there. You're going to get your ass kicked, but it leads into what I was saying before, where it's like, either you're going to grow up right there and start learning shit immediately because all the high-level stuff's there, or you kind of dabble in it, go, fuck, leave, and that's your incentive to do more stuff.
All right, well,
so that you can come back.
All right, here's an interesting thing. What was your least favorite area in Breath of the Wild? From what you remember.
My least favorite area? Probably the volcano and the Gorons.
I haven't even touched that area yet. Still, to this day.
Well,
Okay.
I'm sorry. In my opinion, it's the worst of the 4.
No, I'm just saying, like, I don't know what it's
I
like.
actually don't like. I actually quite like the Gorons over there. Like, that was a fun little.
You know what? I know what? It's not even its area's fault so much. Although I really don't like having to deal with intense atmospheric effects because it's really hot up there.
Yeah.
I mean, that makes sense. You're at a volcano. It's gonna be fucking hot.
I get it. But as a player, I'm like, can I just fucking explore, please? Like obviously in like Ocarina of Time and stuff, and they have the same thing. You need to, when you get a little farther, there's a heat tunic.
Yeah.
But you just put it on and it works. All right, it's not where like in Breath of the Wild, there is a suit that does the exact same thing, but of course when you have like different armor counts and there's like maybe I want to use a different potion, so it's a little bit more tedious in my opinion. But that's not even really the big reason why I don't like the area. Mm-hmm. In Ocarina of Time, and especially in Twilight Princess, when you see the Gorons, they're like big hardy buff dudes, and Breath of the Wild, they're just like these little happy chubby like you're like, you're supposed to be a rock, and yet you're like this squishy thing. I don't like the way the Gorons look in Breath of the Wild. Like the Zoras look amazing.
Oh, they're fucking
Oh
awesome.
my god.
Rito, fantastic.
Oh
the
my
Gerudo, don't even get me started. The fuck happened to the Gorons?
Oh my god, talking about the Zora. The Zoras have hands down the best.
Oh,
Zora's
they're
domain
awesome.
is beautiful.
That was actually like the first area I actually kind of went to. Like it was kind of
that
like
was the first one I did.
that
Yes,
one
me
was
too,
that
yeah,
one
yeah.
was kind of like that one was like kind of hard to get to because I was still kind of learning the game, and then like I was dealing with Lizalfos.
Well, sometimes you can just find it randomly.
And
You
it's just
stumble
like,
upon
alright.
like the first bits to get there.
Yeah, no, and it's like I think that's where the the game kind of subtly hints you to go
Yeah.
because like it is very nice, and it's just like, oh my god,
Because you kind of
this is
just
so
randomly run on the
fucking-
side on, and he's just like, "Follow me." And it's like, okay.
Because that
It's
Why
was,
like,
not?
who's this sexy shark man?
speaking of another difference. Actually, like the water area in Breath of the Wild. Everyone hates the
It's
water temples.
really
It's so cool.
though.
Yeah.
Skyward
No.
Sword's water temple is actually pretty good.
No, the
But,
area
most games notoriously the water temple sucks.
Yeah, no. The area that I least liked was like like it's at the very northern part of the map, I believe. It's it's like in the southern part in the jungle area where there's like that abandoned island. You lose all your shit.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, yeah.
That fucking area.
I was not a huge fan of that.
No, it's just like, god damn, that was hard. Because you don't have any of your shit. And I think I lost all my shit even before then because there was like that area there. And like I learned how to fucking deal with the Lionels, but the frickin' shooty laser robot thing with the weapons and shit, I was still having problems with, especially in the second half, dealing with the fucking lasers and shit. I got their items, and then I lost them right away when I got to the island. It's like, fuck, I worked all, like, and now I can't leave this fucking island.
So, before this turns into a Breath of the Wild
Yeah.
podcast, of course, I make a lot of comparisons walking at a time, no doubt, because I've beaten that game like 8 times. I love that game. It's one of my favorite games to this day. And like I said, one of the biggest changes for me was I'm a big dungeoner. I like the dungeoning. So that was a kind of a big letdown for me in Breath of the Wild. I love the game. Don't get me wrong. But I did miss the dungeon. So I'm hoping in Breath of the Wild 2 they make a bigger appearance than the Divine Beasts. And then, of course, all the different item variety. Because in Breath of the Wild, there's some, but ultimately it's your 4 things on your slate: bows, swords, weapons. They function a little bit differently, but ultimately they're kind of the same, right? So I didn't really feel like I was earning a bunch of new cool shit, just better stuff, but not necessarily new stuff, right? As I experienced Breath of the Wild, where in Ocarina of Time, I'm like, wow, I got the Deku Tree, and I'm like, I got the slingshot, and all of a sudden I'm shooting at ladders and switches and killing things from a distance when I was just slashing away, and then you get and then you get the bombs, which of course are in Breath of the Wild too, but again, that's given to you right away, where in Ocarina of Time, it's like it opens up all these new possibilities for combat, for exploration, for puzzles.
Oh, yeah.
But for as open as certain games like that can be, with you having to go around like a central area, Hyrule Field, where there are entrance points to other places, you have to constantly go back and forth between them for whatever story reasons you got to go through. Then you got to remember, I have this now, like a bomb, like the bombs or something now. So, where was that one point I saw? And then you have to start remembering.
Yeah.
So you have to have this mental checklist with you every time you play a game like that.
Yeah, that's the thing is Breath of the Wild is easier to pick up for that reason. Where I was telling Marcelo when he was playing, because it's been a little while now, but when you play a Zelda game traditionally, don't put it away for more than a couple of days, because if you come back, you're gonna be like, I don't remember where I am. I don't know what I was doing. I don't remember what my items do anymore. What the hell is the puzzle in this damn place? It's really easy to come back and be hella confused, right? It's a puzzle game, right? So if you start to set it aside and unlearn everything, oh no, it's really hard. You can really screw yourself up.
Yeah, no, as much as I like the open-ended area of Breath of the Wild, and just having that great like land-based travel and like horse based travel, well, what made that game even more like much more better is like if there was better like water-based travel, and that's why I like Wind Waker so much.
Of course.
No.
Yeah.
Because like it has kind of like that same feel with Breath of the Wild, but like you get to travel via the seas, and like the ocean becomes hectic, and then like you just stumble upon so much shit.
Yeah, in Breath of the Wild, you either have the really slow swimming with your stamina meter. You can try and blow that stupid raft with your thing, or you can just be like ice block jump, ice block jump, ice block jump, and just
Yeah, no, it's like I like
none of it's
it
just
felt
too
like
particularly
very
fun,
limited.
honestly.
So I like that's a great idea for like a Zelda game, just like Breath of the Wild, where it's like open world, but you're a commander of a pirate ship, and like you find NPCs that help like become part of your crew, and you get to have like this this pirate ship, and you get to travel around throughout the seas. That would be so cool.
Sounds like you need to play Phantom Hourglass. Yeah, you don't really get to hire a crew, but you have kind of one, and you're basically a pirate, and you go across the seas.
Oh yeah. But with like the fidelity of Breath of the Wild, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's actually funny. Zora, you go to Zora's domain, and it's just like connected to a little river. Like in Ocarina of Time, it is too, but it connects to the lake and everything like that. Where in Breath of the Wild, it's like there's like almost no water at all.
Yeah, I think that's like
the edge of the map is the ocean. Basically.
Again, you like almost randomly find it by chance, because that's how I found it. I was just like, oh, there's this fish guy, he's cool. Guess I'll follow him, and it started me off on the first Divine Beast. So I was like, oh,
another thing.
Okay.
Another thing to appreciate from the linear games, of course, is one of the another big critique from Breath of the Wild is that due to the open nature of it, it's hard to have a conclusive story. You didn't get as much of the characters. Where, like, for example, you've played Wind Waker, you really like it.
Yeah.
How much charm that game has, how much like emphasis on the personalities of the characters.
Oh yeah, no, that's why like out of all the links, I like Wind Waker.
Is awesome.
Like no, Toon Link is just like he's the best.
And
fucking
it's one
Link.
of the reasons why Skyward Sword clicks with you probably too, because it has a lot of that charm as well.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And that kind of
that way
like,
it feels very similar.
Like I kind of wish Skyward Sword would have explored more of like the flying aspects. as well.
Because the sky is obviously just kind of like a little hub. It's kind of like the Hyrule field of Ocarina of Time, is probably a good way to compare it. Is where Skyward Sword likes to make it look like it's like this giant thing. It's really not. It's like just like, oh, you're in a little hub and there's a couple islands and and then
you can fly around. But it's mainly like just like
it's just a way to connect
travel.
things. Yeah.
I do like Skyward Sword's villains though, especially like the not Demise, but I forget.
Or Demise, Girahim.
Yeah, no, he's like my I wish I could see more of that.
My friend likes him a lot because he reminds him of Orochimaru from Naruto.
Yeah, he does have that vibe.
But you get a lot more of that in the linear games. Twilight Princess also has a much darker, but still has character charm to it, but it's a completely different expression.
Yeah, no, I don't know. I have to probably try Twilight Princess again. Like, I think the reason why I didn't gravitate towards it, because, like, I will say, the beginning of it, it's a slog.
It's slow.
It's very slow.
Yeah. Twilight Princess is actually, and this is very, not, people are not going to be too happy with me, but...
Controversial.
Yeah, not one of my favorite titles. It's not bad.
Titles.
But I've only beaten it once, and it took me a long time, actually. And I've just not really had...
I mean, I've heard mixed things about Twilight Princess. People tend...
Some people to absolutely love that game and praise it.
No, like, there's certain things I like about Twilight Princess. I love Midna as, like, a character.
Midna
She's cool.
Awesome.
She is cool.
She's really funny.
I just kind of feel like I wish the gameplay would kind of reflect that awesomeness, because like, it just feels slow. It takes its time before you get to really do anything.
I also don't really like the color palette.
It's a very more muted type of Zelda game.
Yeah, it's
in
a very
the color
muted
department.
Yeah.
Right, where, like, again, Wind Waker and Skyward Sword, extremely vibrant.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So much
Expressive,
color,
cartoony.
lots to look at. Right? Not that I don't like a dark palette. I love Dark Souls, right? But
oh, yeah.
Twilight Princess just doesn't... It just... I don't know. Like you said, it
doesn't use it effectively,
really,
yeah.
It's just not as pretty.
Yet, funny enough, those were some of the more iconic, and they were the ones that stayed for the longest in terms of designs represented in Smash Brothers.
Well, their models are fine. I guess it's more of like the landscape.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because everything looks that way.
Yes.
There's not much color from what I've seen in that game.
Yeah. It's almost like they went too gritty,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Where even the areas that are more lighthearted still feel gritty. So it's like, I've always liked that.
I mean, Skyward Sword's art style was kind of a happy medium. It sort of kept that very detailed style, but with the more colorful.
Wait, which one?
Skyward Sword?
Yeah.
It blends like the more detailed characters and environments with the more vibrant colors of something
because
Dead
Skyward Sword
64
Link
games or Wind Waker or
looks
something.
similar to Twilight Princess Link,
Yeah.
but just a more friendly looking Link.
More fucking handsome. Who wouldn't want to kiss him on the lips?
I'm not gonna lie about this.
Obviously, it's a
though.
completely different art style.
Yeah.
Where Skyward Sword
Like,
goes for a much more
Skyward-
like water painting kind of look, where Twilight Princess took a much more serious look.
Yeah. What were you gonna not lie about?
Like Skyward Sword has some pretty good aspects to it. I would say like, besides Girahim, the rest of the bosses are just kind of meh.
That's that's the other controversial
Especially
thing. I
Mr.
actually
Toefungus
really
here.
like Skyward Sword, and that's another mix.
Yeah.
I could see the complaints, right? Obviously, a lot of people complain about the motion controls.
Yeah.
I played the Switch version; it's much better. Even the Wii, having played it twice, the first time I was like, "Yeah, this is rough." The second time, I realized how much of it was me,
Yeah.
and once I actually learned how to use it properly, it's still Wii motion controls. It was still rough around the edges, but it was much better. My
Yeah.
second playthrough.
You kind of have to get into a little bit of a groove.
But did you play Twilight Princess on the Wii or the GameCube?
I owned the Wii version, and that's another look. And that's because, look. I know everyone likes the GameCube version. They don't like the motion controls in Twilight Princess. And to be fair, I don't either because it's rough. Skyward Sword handles it much better. Of course, it requires the Wii Plus remote, which is better. But I never owned a GameCube, so I didn't play Wind Waker until much later.
Yeah, no, and actually, I played the remastered version of Wind Waker. I didn't play the original one.
Which is fine. It's basically the
I
same.
mean, it's same. It looks a lot nicer.
It just looks nicer, and there's a couple quality of life improvements over the old one. But it's basically the same game. Yeah. And then, what's your favorite items? It can be from any game, but out of the items that you've gotten so far, what are your favorite ones? Mine, personally, is probably the hook shot. Of course, this was called Ocarina of Time, but there's variations of it from other games as well. In Twilight Princess, it's called the claw shot.
Yeah.
And there's a... wait, in Wind Waker, it's that rope thing, right?
Yeah. I don't know. My favorite item? I forget what's called from Wind Waker. The Wind Waker wand or something like that. I don't know if that's an actual item in that game or not. You could change the wind and all that. It's kind of like the equivalent
of the Ocarina and Ocarina of Time.
Yeah. The Wind Waker. Yeah. Basically, I really like that thing just because, I can just say, the wind's being a real bitch.
I guess you can. But
I'm gonna count. I know what you're talking about.
Let's give a second answer though, just for the sake, because that is not really exactly what I meant.
Yeah. No, I know it's not exactly what you meant. Man, I'm having a really hard time remembering. I guess the bomb from Breath of the Wild. I know it's fucking simple, but having bombs on command, that's just nice.
They're practical. They're good for combat, and you can blow up the terrain and all kinds of things like that. What about you, Marcelo?
I don't know if I can really say because I haven't had
I know you haven't dabbled nearly as much.
Had a whole lot of experience.
I also quite like the claw. I know there's a claw shot in Skyward Sword. It's been a while, but that felt really cool to traverse the areas.
It's just so satisfying to grapple to shit.
It's I'm Spider-Man. I'm Batman.
Well, actually, I've always thought it was funny because when you grapple to stuff, it like yanks you like immediately. I feel like in real life it would just be like, it would just pop out. Like you no way you'd be able to grip onto that thing hard enough. It would just fly out of your hand.
Well, it's magic, and I don't know. Link could probably be a light guy.
Hey, he's pretty strong.
Oh yeah, definitely.
In some of those games, he pulls off some pretty intense feats of strength.
This was an item in Wind Waker. I know this is an item. The mirror shield.
Yes,
Yeah, for, like, the light-
That's an item in a couple games.
Oh yeah, no, like that. Like there was some cool like light puzzles that I did in like one of the temples.
I like the mirror shields oftentimes as well.
It's a cool item.
Mhm.
It's just like I can protect myself, and I can also do tricks with the light. Ooh, I've only could use this in combat to blind my enemies before I just like turn them into like freaking like ink blot, kind of like ink blot smoke and shit like that. I don't know if like you could actually use the mirrored shield in that game. Again, it's been a while since I played a Zelda game. I've just been playing just. I don't really play a lot of video games as much as I used to. I traded out video games for tabletop games. So
another difference between the more traditional formula, all the way back from the beginning to Breath of the Wild, is Breath of the Wild, and it's open. There's not as many. There's not as much enemy variety. You go into a new area and it's like, oh, you fight slimes. Oh, now it's a fire slime. Oh, now it's an ice slime. Right? the whiz robes. Oh, fire whiz robe. Oh, an ice whiz robe. Right? Oh, it's the Lizzophos and the Moblins everywhere I go. Where in all the different games, you probably played enough between some of the others that you've touched on, where each area typically, there's a couple reoccurring enemies, but usually there's something specific to wherever you are, right? So like in the forest.
Unique enemies per region.
Yes.
Because in Breath of the Wild, it's the recurring
lacking
ones.
area.
It's in Breath of the Wild, it's the recurring ones, and they're elementally themed off of where they are. Which, leads to, I'm in the fire region, here's a fire guy.
Yeah.
Here's the same guy, but ice in the snowy mountains.
There's very few area-specific enemies in Breath of the Wild, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Which,
Does
as
Bacalblin's
good as
black
the world is and explorative, it
red?
does take away the variety a little bit when I keep running into the same things wherever I go. Where in, like, for example, Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker, you run into, like, at the beginning of Ocarina of Time, for example, or you run into a lot of, the Deku Babas, like the piranha plant looking things, basically. And the Skulltulas, spiders, all that stuff. And then you move into Dodongo's Cavern, and all of a sudden you're fighting like ancient dinosaur looking, the Dodongos, and like a completely different. And then like, and same thing in Wind Waker, Skyward Sword. Like one of the very first things you fight, you get your sword and you have to go save your bird that Groose captured.
Oh yeah.
You go into that cave with the training sword that you took, and I think it's Keese or the bats.
Oh yeah,
Right in the very first cave. And that's it until you land, because there's not really any enemies up there.
Actually, this is what I'm hoping for in Breath of the Wild too, because even though I've not played Ocarina of Time,
it's a sin. You know that game is the highest rated game of all time on Metacritic?
I know.
Jesus.
I think this is something that I really like in Ocarina of Time that I'm hoping with Breath of the Wild too, because they've kind of hinted at this with like the reveal of Ganondorf's decrepit corpse, is we get some more creepy enemies, especially like since Ocarina of Time.
Dude, Wind Waker. Re-Deads scare the shit out of me, and it's so weird because it's Wind Waker, and it's mostly they're like charming, but they're like that way they like move and screech at you, and Wind Waker is scary, dude.
I forgot about those. I gotta like.
They're actually scary because there's different variations of them throughout the series, but in Wind Waker they're terrifying.
Hold on, I'm actually looking up a picture of these because I think I remember
Wind
these
Waker
guys.
Re-Dead is what you're gonna want to look up.
I didn't like them in the N64 games, are they?
Ocarina of Time, the Redeads.
Yeah, their screams in
They
those.
screech and you get stuck and
Yeah.
you're like,
No,
"Oh,
these
let me
fucking
go!"
these fucking things.
Yes, those things.
They look funny.
They're scary.
They're little aliens.
Yeah. Redeads are notoriously freaky throughout the Zelda series.
Yeah. Well, I think they look creepier because they're more humanoid in the N64 games. They just have blinking, soulless eyes. Those ones at least look a little funny because they just have like these like big teeth.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's what they look like in Ocarina of
That's
Time.
fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I want more of. I want these.
But that's what Ganon looks like in the teaser trailer for the second one.
Because Ocarina of Time, I think, is a good balance between the really lightheartedness of Wind Waker and Skyward Sword, but it takes some of the grit and dark that you would see more in Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess and kind of balances it out into a much more even tone in Ocarina of Time. Ocarina of Time is a significantly more balanced style in that respect, and I think you will, once you get around to playing it, you'll respect that. Like I said, because
Plus,
Weston tried to play it, but the controller.
You don't have to play Ocarina even
inhibiting.
on the N64.
It's true.
There's a GameCube version, the 3DS
Yeah,
version.
They brought it out for the arcade, which of course is closed now. I called it the arcade.
The virtual
Console. I said arcade because Xbox boy. They call it the arcade.
Yeah. No, Virtual Console was how I first played it because I played it
Yeah.
with a Wii U Pro
Now,
controller,
Yeah, they have the 3DS version, of course,
which I own too.
they have it on the Switch subscription service.
If you want to drop some bones for that shit, if you want to pay like $70 for it,
Is it 70? I thought it was 50.
it's something or other. I don't know.
Still, $20 for
Too
the
much.
basic is fine. 50, like, oh, you get a couple extra consoles. What?
You'll get the new Mario Kart 8 Battle Pass for free.
While you're subbed.
I know, but like,
Just a quick off topic. 48 tracks? Holy balls!
no, we talked about that in the last podcast. Vic and I did the Nintendo Direct.
That's probably my favorite thing. I was like, 48? That's like $2 a track.
They said, I know you guys wanted Mario Kart 9. Here, have some more Mario Kart 8 instead.
To be fair, I'm not that upset by it because Mario Kart 8 is already so good.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but there's just a lot of elements to Zelda, of course. Yeah, you guys, because you primarily really started to get into it in Breath of the Wild, Marcelo.
Yeah.
And then you've backtracked, and your
To try again.
and your opinion is more positive of it now overall.
Being exposed to more, especially hearing the two of you going back and forth with it and thinking, well, if Wes can do it and be invested legitimately in at least a couple of the titles, hopefully I can find something. Because there was a time where, and I've rewatched them again a little more recently as well. There's been a long while. The more I think critically of Zelda, I go back to something like Eager Raptor Sequelitis on it. And even though he already knew going into that video he was going to get a lot of flack, but throwing in the points in there, from the perspective of him, like me in a way, growing up with arcade-like games or with Mega Man games, where everything is just super taught to you intuitively through the gameplay and without people having to stop you to be like, do a tutorial, do a whole session where you learn your sword or you learn your shield, you learn to parry. By the way, take this note to this guy so you can then open the door to go through it. And it's like, Breath of the Wild allows you to use your own skill set to set your own difficulty and your own challenge. Like I was saying before, you can fight a Lionel immediately when you fly off the little island you start on. You might get your ass handed to you, or depending on how quickly you learn the controls, you can stick it out and the fight will be longer because you are not very high level at all.
Because of course, yeah.
If you do go higher level, you'll spend less time on that Lionel, but you still have to know your ins and outs and learn how the fight works.
Especially since it's not exactly that punishing, because if you see something that's scary, you can always just save, and if you die, then reload.
I mean, yeah. Or you can just say fuck it and go to something else, and the game will not punish you for it.
Mm-hmm.
There is no set order to do anything in. Like I said, you can go to Ganon straight up after you get off the thing, as long as you try to survive. Then it's just survival at that point, because that's the end game right there. You can do any shrines in any order. You can go after the divine beasts however you want. And how much of the story, like you were saying with character interactions, what I kind of liked about Breath of the Wild is that it's really up to you how much of the game you experience based off how you want to play, because once you catch wind of, oh, there are these memories I can go find, first off, it's a matter if you want to go for them. When you do, little bits of the story and of the past are unlocked for you to start learning, so you can stop the game and go, let me watch and see how this all went down. What was Link's relationships with these characters and with Zelda? Because no other game really does that. It doesn't really... It sets you up to where the two of you meet, boy likes girl, and that's kind of like a small setup, and then she gets kidnapped or gets trapped or gets somewhere, and then you'll reunite later, or you have to go straight up save her ass. And here, it's learning how they once were, and then now that Link's awakened all these years later, he has got to save the world and reunite with her, basically. And that was cool. And not having to have all these characters stop you to tell you this is what happened, like a fucking Star Wars opening with the text. You know, it was refreshing. It was cool to see that everything was dictated by you, pretty much. And those are the kinds of games I like. It's all based off your skill set.
That reminds me in Skyward Sword, every once in a while you get the text choices, and they're always so stupid. It'll be like Link. It'll be like at the very beginning of Skyward Sword, where you haven't even really started the game. You're still in basically that beginning area where you're getting the cloth, the sailcloth from Zelda at the beginning, and she's like, you know what happens at the end of the ceremony, don't you? Basically implying she's gonna kiss you, and you're like, there's like and your options are like, no, and yes, or something like that, and you're just like, wow, thanks for the choices. Actually, but every once in a while it's funny. There's one when you first run into Groose.
Oh yeah.
When you're trying to interrogate him about him stealing your bird, and you're like, one of your choices is like, you know, one's just like some normal, like, whatever, continue the conversation. But one of them, he's just like, nice hair. And Groose is like, hey, don't bring my dew into this. It's really funny because he has like that Jimmy Neutron ass style hair.
Oh, yeah, and then Groose
is probably
in a weird way.
One of my favorite characters in the entire series. Of like all Zelda ever. I love Groose so much. He's so funny.
Yeah.
I bet Groose was like the original fucking Ganondorf before there was a Ganondorf. It's like your pompadour, your red-haired ass, pompadour ass. It's gonna spawn evil one day.
One interesting thing about Zelda, too, is a way that a lot of the games interconnect. If you take the time to look at it, like the lore book, there's like multiple timelines. It gets really convoluted. Where Breath of the Wild, they're like, okay, fuck it, and they just like reference like all of them.
Yeah.
They all happen. This is the end result.
Skyward Sword's like before the NES games.
Skyward Sword is actually the very first one, chronologically.
Okay.
The very first one, and the first Zelda ever is near the end.
Oh yeah, it's like, isn't that in like the darkest?
Really, actually, almost all of the old ones.
They're on the darkest timeline.
Most of the Zelda games started at the very end of the timeline, and as they made more Zelda games, they've moved earlier and earlier in the timeline. And then not only that, like, freaking Zelda 1 and Link's Awakening, they take place in the darkest fucking timeline. Where it's like, yeah, I'm Ganon, I rule all you. And it's like, no wonder there was an old man hiding in the cave. That was probably one of the safest places to be. Yeah, Ocarina of Time is actually a time split for 3 different timelines.
Yep.
They really want to make sure that Ocarina of Time was fucking pivotal. It's like, this is the best game ever. Yeah. This game's pivotal. If Link fucks up, something bad happens. This is this timeline.
And then you have Mario, where he's the same age in every single game.
According to Miyamoto, he's 24.
Yeah. He's been 24 for how many years now?
Yeah.
Like 40?
I don't even buy the fact that
50?
I don't even buy him being 24.
Looks 40.
Yeah, I would just say
40, yeah. 30 something at least.
Yeah, I would say probably mid to late 30s.
Yeah.
Just a really, really short mid to late 30s.
Oh yeah, I know. Like
That was all funny
like
and
midlife
Odyssey. You compare him to
crisis
all the actual regular fucking people.
Or the weird in-betweens like Pauline, where she's still cartoony but has a bit more correct.
It's like halfway
Yeah.
there. Yeah, I know. Actually, a lot of the princesses are kind of that way. Where
Yeah.
Paulina is the closest, but even Rosalina and Peach look closer
Yeah.
than Mario, who's just like...
This little pudgy fuck.
Yeah. And then if you go even farther to like Wario, who's literally just almost a perfect ball.
and Waluigi being a freaking
Stick.
that I want to break.
What's his hatred for Waluigi?
I hate
knows no
Waluigi.
bounds.
So, one thing, also, the series has a lot of differences. Of course, I've been making a lot of comparisons to Breath of the Wild because that is the new one. Pretty much, it's super highly regarded. Damn near everyone has played it at this point.
It's the new world that we're in now because we
Right.
also have
And
Age of
it's
Calamity
significantly
and the
different.
second game.
Yeah. But there's still, even though the formula has been the same for a long time, there's still a lot of difference, especially one thing that I always tell people is, and some are easier than others, like Wind Waker is probably one of the easier ones, I would say, where Skyward Sword is particularly difficult. I would say the hardest is probably Majora's Mask, whenever you guys get around to playing that one.
That was like the first game that my girlfriend played
Yeah.
in the Zelda series.
That was a horrible decision.
She called it just anxiety of the game.
Yes.
Wait.
Majora's Mask is almost specifically designed for vets.
Yeah.
It expects you to have a good understanding of how Zelda works already. It does not handhold you much, right? It's one of the more open world for the formula, because similar to Breath of the Wild, obviously to get there, there's actually only 4 major areas, just like Breath of the Wild. The majority of that game is side content, and so every time you like do one thing, there's a bunch of new things that you can do. And so I think again, and of course there's the time mechanic, which is super unique, and literally no game has it like that.
Yeah.
To this day,
Yeah.
Majora's Mask's time system completely unique. If you know of something that's similar, let me know, because I honestly can't think of a single fucking game that uses time
isn't
the
like
same way
that
that
game,
Majora's
like,
Mask does.
It goes through like 3 days before like
Correct.
the fucking moon just collides.
Yes, so like I said, that's not just unique for a Zelda game, it's unique completely. So basically it's like you have 3 days until the world ends, essentially, is the plot, right? And then you can reset that 3 days infinitely, right? And people live their lives just like in the real world. So like if you were living on a 3-day cycle, have you ever seen the movie like Groundhog Day?
No. I know of
Have
it,
you
but no.
seen the movie Groundhog Day?
No.
God damn it.
I know the premise.
This does not help me.
I know
Okay.
the premise.
But the premise is, he's basically having to relive Groundhog Day over and over again. And no matter what he does, right, he can't get out of the loop. He's trying to figure out how to get out of the loop. But my point is, he gets to the point where he knows exactly the schedule of everybody. He knows where they're going to be at what time, because he's living the same day over and over. Majora's Mask, the same thing. When you first play, you're going to be like, I don't know.
What the fuck
fuck's
do
going
I
on?
do?
Yeah, there's people are living their lives. I don't know what the hell to do.
Why
but then,
are they living their
But then,
lives?
as you play more, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's going to be here at this time, at this day. At this place, this event's going to happen. This place, and it's going to happen 100% guaranteed every time, because it's the same 3 days. And so they build the mechanics off of that, and it creates not only for Zelda, but an extremely unique experience. Like I said, it widens up to a lot of exploration and side content for the traditional formula. And so I think when you guys get there, again, after putting a couple Zelda, especially you, Marcelo, a couple Zelda games under your belt, I think you will probably appreciate it. The time mechanic is a double-edged sword, though, because it is awfully punishing if you mess up, because if you have something you need to do at the end of the 3 days, guess what? You have to wait the entire 3 goddamn days to get something done. No,
Marcelo! Come on, we can't keep on
there are ways to kind of fast through it and slow time down, but But yeah, it is definitely it's not a game you want to start on. So tell your girlfriend to play other Zelda games and then reapproach it with a clean mind, and hopefully she will appreciate it.
I mean, there are,
Yeah.
I mean, she's never
Because
super invested into this stuff
my
in general.
aunt is a big Zelda player, and she's beaten basically all of them, but she cannot beat that one. Same thing. She basically said it's too anxiety inducing, right? Because it literally puts you on a time. Like, this is how much time. If the time runs out and you're not done with whatever you're up, oh well, try it again, right? It's not like you can't really take your time in that game. It forces you to go, because there's a way to slow down time to give you more time, but ultimately, if you mess up, you have to restart. It's not like you can't pace yourself, and that for a lot of people turns people away from Majora's Mask. That's very different compared to the rest of the series in that way. Where in every other game, the time pressure is not there at all.
Yeah.
It's a very unique situation.
Oh yeah, and then like actually like Breath of the Wild, like it's kind of like Ocarina of Time is kind of similar to Breath of the Wild because it's like one of the very few times where you follow a link from another game, like this Majora's Mask one is basically the Ocarina of Time one. Basically,
it's a direct sequel to Ocarina of Time. It takes place immediately after.
Okay. I thought in the timeline it was kind of more like an offshoot of like Kid Link fucked up.
Okay, so there's
Going through
yeah.
time.
So to put it into perspective, Ocarina of Time splits off into 3 different
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
timelines, and they're all canon. They're all official, right? I guess in terms of the way via Nintendo's, right? In terms of the games, I think Majora's Mask is technically the most canon. But I don't know that for sure. Basically,
Yeah,
at the end of
no.
Ocarina of Time, because as you know, you have the Kid Link and an Adult Link mechanic, right? So there's a timeline where after Link defeats Ganon, he stays as Adult Link, which is not what happens at the end of Ocarina of Time. The second line is he returns to a kid, and that return goes forward because in Majora's Mask, you're Child Link.
Mm-hmm.
The third timeline, Link died. He failed. Ganon won. In canon, Ganon actually defeats Link at one time.
Yeah,
one
and
timeline.
then that one's the darkest timeline that actually
Yes.
kind of leads to the original Zelda and Link's Awakening. Yeah.
Actually, I think that might lead into one of them leads into Wind Waker. I think it might be that one. Because,
No. The
because-
one that leads
which one?
into
'Cause
Wind
I
Link.
remember like Ganon floods everything. Oh no. The hero never came. Ganon came, and for whatever reason, the hero was never resurrected. So Ganon was just like,
Fuck it.
"Fuck it, cool."
I'm ruling this kingdom. It's like, no, you're not. Not if I flood it.
Yeah.
Isn't Hyrule Historia like dated now? Because didn't they do like a refresh? Isn't there like a Zelda encyclopedia now that came out like a year or two ago? And they redid the timeline again.
Because that's the thing is, a lot of people don't hold it to like super high standards because it is convoluted. Because Nintendo only like halfway took it seriously, you know.
But now even Nintendo themselves are trying to justify it and create some sort of cohesive, coherent timeline.
It's kind of one of those things where like the main basis for the most part makes sense, but things get intermingled, and if you focus on all the little details,
Especially with new games that come out.
Yeah.
right? Because ultimately, at the end of the
Yeah,
day, Nintendo's
like-
trying to make a fun
like-
game, not a giant epic, right?
Yeah, I know. Like for example, like Minish Cap uses like the Toon. Uses like kind of like the Toon Link aesthetic, but technically, like in the timeline, it's like one of the earliest.
Wind Waker?
No, not Wind Waker. Minish Cap.
Well, I think
yeah,
Minish Cap's pretty early. I think.
yeah, like it's probably like the one right after Skyward Sword or something like that. It's like really early in the
If I remember
timeline.
correctly. Man, there's so many goddamn games. It's just splits up really bad. But yeah, for sure, Skyward Sword is the first one, and how they have it set up kind of has to forever be. I can't see how they could possibly make one earlier than that. Because it's basically about the beginning of like the gods and the Master Sword and everything like that. So primitive Zelda, pre-Ganon, or like no. right? It's like where everything started, right? The reincarnation, it's like. No, that's kind of the beginning of everything.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm looking at
Oh,
the
he looked it
timeline,
up.
yeah.
Skyward Sword's first.
Yeah, no, Minish Cap,
it's
second.
literally the second one. You're right.
I don't know what the third one is.
Four
Four Swords. And then, fuck.
Ocarina of Time, and that's
Ocarina
where
of
everything
Time.
fucking splits off.
And then, yeah, that's when every fucking...
But that's the story, isn't it?
Yeah, so
For some
the
reason...
first four are fairly cohesive. After Ocarina of Time, it's like, what the...
Where do spirit tracks land?
Okay, so Ganondorf is sealed. Okay, so apparently, according to this, this is when adult Link stayed alive.
Adult era Ganondorf sealed. Okay.
Yeah, and then Ganondorf's revived, Hyrule is sealed and flooded.
And it goes straight to Wind
And
Waker.
then it goes with the
Yeah,
world...
The
with-
era without a hero, like I was saying. Is,
Yeah, so it's
for whatever
not-
reason-
So it's not like the Hero of Time died, it's just like there was no successor after him.
He just never reincarnated for whatever reason.
Yeah, and then there is the Era of the Great Sea, Era of the Great... Then Phantom Hourglass, and then it leads to Spirit Tracks.
Yeah. You might actually really like Phantom Hourglass if you can somehow get past the stylus controls, because that is... Oof.
And then, so yeah, that's part of the timeline, and then goes into Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, and then...
Yeah, and then,
And then Four Swords
Majora's
and
Mask
Hyrule
takes place.
Adventure.
Like I said, Majora's Mask takes place instantly after Ocarina of Time.
Like, instantly. It's like... Next page. Oh.
The game opens, he's kissing Zelda.
There is not a single
Yeah.
Zelda game where that
they
happens.
kiss?
Where
they
does
kiss?
where does
Doesn't
fucking,
happen.
Wow. Even Peach kisses Mario sometimes.
Doesn't happen. They... In Skyward,
Is there a reason? Is there like a
in
very
Sk-
specific
in
reason
Skyward
for
Sword is probably the one where they toy with the idea of romance the most, but they never actually.
That's interesting.
No, they've never pecked. They've never shown like pecked. Because that's basically what Peach does.
Yeah.
It's not like a makeout session. It's just like poop on the nose or something,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah,
Or the
actually...
table-
The Odyssey teased Mario popping the question at the
So
very
yeah,
end.
no, like yeah. So according to this, The Legend of Zelda and The Adventure of Link. So 1 and 2 are the last ones of the timeline
What
of
did I
the
tell you?
the darkest
first
timeline
games are the last in the entire timeline.
in the
So then
timeline,
where's
and
Breath
in
of
the
the Wild?
worst timeline if Link dies.
the timeline he's looking at, this is exactly what's in my encyclopedia.
Yeah.
Because mine was Skyward Sword. Because Breath of the Wild is really the only mainline game after Skyward Sword. That's the thing you gotta remember. Skyward Sword came out in what, 2011, and then Breath of the Wild 12, and then Breath of the
That
Wild
was like
came
way
out.
earlier than that. I thought it was like
No, it was like
9.
10 to 12. Maybe it was 9.
Or 8 or 9.
No, it was not that early.
Not 8.
It
Okay,
was around
so
10.
apparently,
And then Breath of the Wild came out in 2017.
all right, so apparently this is where fucking Breath of the Wild sits. It takes place right after Spirit Tracks because like Hyrule became rebuilt, and then shit happened. And then
Wasn't there an entry where the Zora weren't even fish people? They
Wind
were
Waker.
more bird people?
Yeah, get this. Wind Waker, that's where the Rito are
actually,
evolved Zora. Flood the world. Let's learn how to fly over it instead of
Okay.
swim everywhere.
all right, no, actually, okay, I was wrong.
Please explain
This is
that
how
to me.
they explain Breath of the Wild. So
At least
no
I'm
matter
pretty sure that's how it
so
works.
no matter what timeline, all the timelines kind of
Oh, shit, you're
converge
right,
at Breath of
2011.
the like
For Skyward.
all.
That's literally what I said.
Yeah.
Apparently, all the timelines, no matter where on the timeline you are, they all end in Breath of the Wild. Like, Breath of the Wild is the de facto, like, that's where everything leads.
Yeah, like I said, it's not. It's kind of set aside. It's not really.
Since
on the
it
official
also
timeline.
references the okay, yeah.
Right, because it references all
most
3
games.
timelines, so
Yeah.
you can't place it. Is essentially what they.
But they also return Ganon to like to Beast. He's not Ganondorf, he's Ganon.
I mean, that's
So,
what
like-
Breath of the Wild 2 is probably exploring, because you
Ganondorf.
clearly see
Yeah.
Ganondorf.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Ganon is the actual reincarnated evil.
Yeah.
Ganon is just kind of like his physical embodiment.
Ganondorf.
Right? Where
Ganondorf. Well,
Yeah,
Ganondorf
Ganondorf
is kind of like more of like he's a corrupted being possessed by the original evil, and then that original evil was kind of morphed into Ganon.
That's why they call him Calamity Ganon in Breath of the Wild, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
I think so.
because I don't even, or they call it the Great Calamity, but as a name to the thing, it's Calamity Ganon.
Yeah, but yeah, he's not Ganondorf.
Yeah, that actually would have been cool if
But
they
you might
actually,
be exploring that.
they reference Demise, so like they call him Calamity instead of Ganon. It was Demise.
Yeah,
Or
because
something.
Demise is the evil, right? Because Ganon wasn't a thing yet,
In that game,
right? Yeah, because in Skyward Sword, like I said, it's the first one for a reason. It's literally how everything began. It's impossible to have one earlier than Skyward Sword. I'm telling you.
When Link was a baby,
right, because
child Link.
Baby
Link,
it was the
probably.
first Link.
Yeah.
Right? The reincarnation pattern had not started yet. Skyward Sword finishes, and that's when the reincarnation cycle begins. That's when you get all the Links, and that's when you get all the Ganondorfs. That's
So
where it
between
begins.
all of this sky stuff and Girahim and everything, does that part of beginning everything actually lay like? Is that how into the plot is that? Is that up there, or is that like a B? Is that a B plot?
Well, like, here's the thing.
Is it an overtone or undertone?
Here's the thing about Skyward Sword. The place where they're at, that was a result of the goddess basically lifting that part of Hyrule, Hylia, up into the air, where the rest of the world is down below.
Basically Hylia's way of separating Hylians, because they're not humans,
Yeah.
from the evil corruption below, right? Let me give you your island, you'll be safe forever, right? And that's how it was for a long time at the very beginning, so not a huge spoiler because it happens right at the beginning of the game. Somebody figures out how to bring Zelda down from that, and then Link has to go save her, right? They've been up there for so long, they're like, I don't even know what the surface looks like. They don't even know what if there is a surface. It's just a rumor because they just live in the clouds. They have no idea. They don't even know it exists. So you go up there and you're like, Link, I'd like to give you advice, but I have none because I have no idea what's down there. So to kind of answer your question, it's more of an undertone, right? Because it shows you how the Master Sword came to be, but it never really goes into it. You just
and then
it's the Master Sword in every game,
are,
right? It's the legendary blade, but they don't really go into like lore
Detail,
on you,
yeah.
right? Sometimes you learn about some of the. You actually experience the Triforce in this title, right? That happens in very few of them.
Oh, and then
Right, you
also
learn about the goddesses, which you get reiterated in Ocarina of Time, which because that happens early. You've seen that,
yeah.
right? So there is it's somewhere in the middle, I would say. It's kind of on a game by game basis.
Yeah.
Some pull from it harder than others, where it's just kind of like
actually Skyward Sword
by.
actually kind of sets up a lot of other things.
Skyward Sword is probably the most lore heavy of all of them.
Yeah, no, because it does actually set up like, all right, well, Temple of Time, Ocarina shit, like, all right, how does the time travel work? Does it explain? Like, there are some aspects of Skyward Sword where there's a little bit of time-based shenanigans. Especially with a character that's in that game that you kind of get different contexts for. You probably know what character I'm talking about.
I think so.
I won't say it because I don't want to spoil it for
I was gonna say, is it spoilers?
Yeah. I'll probably just text it to you, just in case you don't know who I'm talking about, and then you could just confer whether or not that is the character you meant.
Well, with all this heavy Ocarina and Skyward Sword talk, do you think since we've been kind of doing this,
because those are the three we've kind of cycled on: Breath of the Wild, Ocarina of Time, and Skyward Sword.
We will be getting back to
some of the
Breath of the Wild. That is something that we.
I misspelled it wrong.
Yes, the other long hiatus game that we have.
Because we're gonna have to get back to Age of Calamity, but you and I, it's been a few years since we touched Breath of the Wild.
Oh yeah, that is a huge spoiler.
Oh yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah,
that is a ginormous one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that.
Yeah, no, we're not gonna talk about that. That's why I didn't say that character's name.
Yeah.
Also,
that's quite the twist.
Yeah, no, there's also
that's gonna hit him hard.
Yeah, no, and then he knows about Girahim. Girahim also kind of plays a bit of an interesting role in that game. Also kind of playing parallels with another character. I won't say their name either, but
One thing we'll leave it there.
yeah.
Because we've already probably filled Marcelo in with some
Well, 'cause
spoilers over the
I
course
don't
of this
know-
conversation.
I was gonna say,
But
I don't
nothing
know.
huge twisty like that. Kind of more basic stuff.
Because I don't know
Yeah,
how.
no, because I was
basic plot is one
I
thing.
was like, I was
but,
surprised that I
actual
remember
twists
that
is all
about
other
Skyward
things.
Sword because I got into time travel things. Like, oh wait a minute, oh, like, oh my god, that opens up with this character, and because this character is also pretty heavily referenced throughout the Zelda games.
Yeah, because obviously, so to kind of back up on what he's saying is, Link and Zelda and Ganon are the three main reincarnated characters, but there are other characters that are reincarnated to a lesser degree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like just
Well, because
some-
games like Hyrule Warriors, where even though it's a spinoff, they bring in a bunch of characters, and there are times where, because something like Hyrule Warriors is for the fans that have probably played through
Talking about a game that
Skyward Sword,
doesn't
Twilight
make any
Princess,
sense
Ocarina,
in time.
but they'll start bringing in characters, and the way they show them off probably give off those spoilers in a very subtle way. So there might be instances, even if you guys are texting spoilers to each other and I don't know it, there might be a time
Actually, yes.
where we play and I go,
between your time,
oh, I kind of know about that.
between your time in Breath of the Wild and Hyrule Warriors, you're gonna have a little bit to relate to as you go across the Zelda
and actually
series.
even even kind of going back to the reincarnated characters, like you could probably even say like of the champions of Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, they kind of serve as reincarnations of like maybe like the sages or something like that from like Ocarina of Time. Even though I think there were a bit more sages in that, I'm pretty sure there's like
6.
there's 6. Yeah,
Wouldn't that be more of
So
like
the
an
numbers
XP than
change.
anything else, because it's somewhat of a
'Cause the
substitute
sages
for
in
those
the
characters?
Wind Waker as well.
yeah. I don't know how many sages there are in Wind Waker.
Yeah, some
probably.
characters are substitutes. Some characters are actually
yeah.
yes, right.
Well, because if you're talking about shit like in Twilight Princess, where it's that old night warrior who's supposed to be Link from Ocarina, that's one that people know
you
about.
know about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of know
the
about that.
Hero's Shade.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's big. I think from that timeline, I know
you just
that's
kind of
the
hear
little
about
bit-
it. So
Yeah,
That
no,
is-
I was like, that's cool.
apparently that's supposed
Can't
to be
relate
the
to it, but it's
link
cool.
from like
Ocarina
from
of
the
Time.
China from the child timeline
From China.
like
Link from China.
from the like where he goes back and becomes a child and then kind of grows up bitter. Like, goddamn, he
Because
kinda
he
gets,
went on,
like-
because Ocarina of Time, he goes on this. I mean, he doesn't all of them, but you imagine going, because like I said, one of the timelines is he turns back into a kid. The downside of that is nobody besides a very small select few people have any idea of what he did for Hyrule and the world. So he basically gets kind of annoyed at that. Like, I went on this big ass, I saved all you fuckers.
and
I
nobody
get
knows about
absolutely
it
no credit.
because because he did such a good
Nobody knows
job.
about it.
Well, because he did such a good job of saving the future that of course no one's going to acknowledge it because it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Because he prevented it from happening, and
Yeah.
then that's the
So
downside.
how do you tell someone, I saved the world? Oh, okay, dude.
Alright, man.
You crazy
Just
bastard.
kind of
Get
looking
this
at
guy
it
some
like
mental
like a crazy hobo across the street. It's like I'm
Yeah,
sure
so,
you did.
Since you already know, it's not a big spoiler. The Hero's Shade is, as far as I know, it's the only game where you have 2 links in the same
yeah.
game. Yes, yeah.
And it'd be some like canon, basically.
So basically, the whole purpose of the Hero's Shade is to take the lessons that he learned and pass them on to the next Link. That way, he feels like he contributed something,
Yeah.
right? Worthwhile to the current timeline that he's now in.
Yeah.
Right? Because ultimately, obviously, he played a huge part, but after going back in time, it's almost like he did nothing at all. Right? And that's
Yeah,
kind of why
yeah.
he's sour.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, that's all kinds of Zelda talk.
That's Zelda. I was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
say, with how much Skyward Sword and Ocarina talk we've been having, I feel we should give out some little spoilers of our own. And after, let's see, when this podcast goes out, we may or may not already be like, we're nearing the end of like Uncharted Drake's Fortune, me and Wes. Me and Chase were getting up there with Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. Ratchet is supposed to be Chase's break from Undertale because we have to do the genocide route. So once that's done, we were going to return to Breath of the Wild. We're going to save that, and we're going to start Ocarina of Time. So that will be the surefire way I finally get to beat a Zelda game, let alone your favorite one, the one you hold in very high regard. And Wes really wants to go back to Skyward Sword and have me play it with him. So at some point, after Uncharted and some other games we have planned, we will hit that up.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to play both because,
Oh,
like I
yeah.
said, Skyward Sword
like,
is my next
especially-
favorite. So.
Yeah, no, we're gonna play like we probably could play those kind of back to back, so that way he can complete 2 under his belt.
Wait, Jesus, that's gonna be a lot.
And
lot
it'll be yeah, no, it's gonna be interesting because you'll be playing the most widely loved Zelda.
We don't want to
and
burn
then,
him because we burn him out, then he'll be like,
I'm done. I don't even want to go back to Breath of the
Well,
Wild.
no, because
Age of Calamity.
It'll be an interesting dichotomy. Like he'll
for
be
another
playing,
3 years.
that is true.
It's like-
he'll be in a position to compare them to really well.
Yeah, no, because you'll be
sure.
playing because you'll be playing like Ocarina of Time, which is like one of the most well-regarded.
Like I said, it's the
It's
highest rated game.
it's the
of
most
all
well-regarded.
time.
Mind you, I'm not going to go into this game with that mindset because I don't
Yeah.
feel I need to. I'm not putting myself in high regard by saying
It's-
that,
No.
but I need to put myself in a position where I don't start yelling at it and I don't start getting frustrated with
Yeah,
it
no,
because it's
it's
a type
just like-
of game I don't normally play.
Of course.
Yeah, no, and then
That's
it's
going
just
to piss people off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and so-
no, it's just like Ocarina of Time. It's like one of the best games ever, and then compared to Skyward Sword, which many people regard to be the worst Zelda. Or I've heard a lot of
At
people
least as
talk-
3D Zeldas go.
Yeah, 3D Zeldas go. Not a lot of people like Skyward Sword, so it'll be very interesting to kind of see that dichotomy.
Yeah, that's my controversial opinion that it's actually really good.
No, I agree. I love Skyward Sword. And it's like, and this is kind of funny because I actually had the opposite reaction. Like I had the reaction that someone would expect with Skyward Sword, with Ocarina of Time, because I hated the fucking controller so bad that it's like, fuck it, I'm done. I hate this fucking controller.
Yeah, like I said, like Marcelo was saying, if you want to forego the Nintendo 64 entirely, there's a
Trident.
lot of options that you can take.
If you want to
Yeah.
forgo the Trident controller, we can get you one of the ones that I have that I just showed you before we started the podcast.
Yeah.
If you still want to play it on original hardware.
Those
yeah.
third-party,
Yeah.
like, smaller ones. They're a little more traditional looking.
Yeah, and so I think Marcelo and I talked about it a little bit. Due to the nature of Zelda games, if you get stuck, which of course Marcelo is going to be doing predominantly the playing since you and I have played them, that doesn't lead to very good video footage of walking around for 40 minutes trying to figure it out. So we've kind of decided I will kind of let him play and just lightly guide and only step in if it really starts to slow down.
Okay.
And I suggest probably doing the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, that probably won't be too fun for him. I was going to just kind of let him...
Conversely, I was going to say, depending if
I was going to let him kind of like...
areas are faster to beat, like just whole areas, we just tag team it. Where, like, I'm doing an area, I finish up.
Yeah.
If we go somewhere completely different, he can take over for a bit. Or, I think we'll get there when we get there.
Yeah.
We'll
Either
figure
could
out a
work.
system. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to be...
But there has to be some kind of balance, because if we just let him completely and don't help him, that could lead to some bottlenecks.
model. But yeah, no, but like, I'm kind of...
Lots of cutting.
I'm in that mindset. It's just like I want him to kind of experience the bottleneck because it is gonna happen. He's just gonna have to muscle in.
We'll see.
This is always when because John has been playing a lot of the Zelda games, and I've been watching him, and my thing has always been, he's always like, I don't know what to do, and my advice is always, have you tried all your items?
I mean, yeah. But then you get shit like when you were over that one time, and Vic and I both were looking at the graveyard going,
Oh my god, that was so funny.
what the fuck do we do here? And then we tried everything, and we were like so close to figuring it out, but we did not quite know what to do. And you were like, have you tried grabbing it? And we were like, you can
He was
You can
using
do that?
He was in the graveyard because he said he's playing about the first third of the game, basically.
Okay.
And so there's in a lot of Zelda games, there's usually blocks and things you can push and pull.
Yeah.
So Ocarina of Time,
At that
there's a
particular
gravestone that you can pull.
At that particular point, they don't have you pushing and pulling a lot of stuff yet. You have to push the box to get through into the little castle courtyard. After
And there's a
that,
couple
there's
times the Deku Tree.
a little bit here and there.
Yeah, but it was just
Not enough to
something...
remind me, like, oh wait, that's a fucking thing I can do.
Yeah, so
What?
Marcelo and his brother were tag teaming, trying to be like, "What? I don't get it." And I'm just sitting there like,
Like,
"Bruh,
fucking
you're
dumbass."
overthinking it." Yeah.
Like, did you at least come in like,
Oh,
did you
I
push
tried
the
to give him
grave?
tips before. I was like, yeah.
Oh, you went nice about it. I probably would have been like me.
I
It's
tried. I tried for like half an hour. To
Like, I would have been like,
No,
So-
that is
wow.
why we dropped Monster Hunter, because I could not fucking stand when I'm just
Oh.
trying to do a thing and I miss something obvious that you know about, but I
Oh,
don't.
yeah,
So I'm
Monster
hearing you.
Hunter
I'm
is
hearing you
actually
going.
pretty
I'm hearing
complicated.
Wes
Yeah.
going. No. I'm hearing Wes going like, you should. No. And I'm like,
Yeah,
do you
no,
want
I'm
to
kind
fucking
of
play?
like-
Do you want to fucking play? Shut the fuck up and let me
I'm sorry.
do it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get kind of backseat gamer when it's like a game that I really am into because I want to help him,
Yeah.
but it's just like
I know,
no,
that's
he's
what I'm
gotta
saying,
figure it
That's
out.
what I'm saying. That's why like we have to find that balance for Zelda.
Yeah.
Because Zelda is one of those games. It's going to do that. End of discussion. All right, it's not something that you just progress through willy nilly.
I will admit,
Even as a vet, whenever a Zelda
I
game
don't
comes
know
out,
if
I'm
I'm-
always like,
yeah,
the hell am I doing here?
I
You
don't
know?
I don't know if I'm
It's
that
better because I have kind of an idea of how the puzzles
Yeah.
work generally, but
Yeah.
still, I still have to figure everything out.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I'm that. I'm as bad as I was like a while ago with like backseat gaming. It's just like, oh, did you try this? It's like, because like I will admit I'm not a great teacher, and that's just from my
Well,
upbringing.
I'm also
It's
not
just
a
like,
very patient person, especially in games. where
yeah.
Again, why do you think I prefer open world Breath of the Wild versus open yet progressionally linear classic Zelda?
Yeah.
That's why I've only touched a little bit of those games and then never finished them. But Breath of the Wild, even though I haven't finished it either, it's just because I haven't spent enough time
Yeah, actually,
playing it. But I definitely would, because
Yeah.
I like progressing on my own, doing it my own
Actually,
way.
you know what? I think out of the Monster Hunter games, you might actually like Rise, because like Rise kind of puts you in there. It's a lot more streamlined, and it kind of just throws you at like what you want to be doing in Monster Hunter, doing the hunts a lot quicker than World does. I will say like World. I know we kind of
World's the one that we did, right? That was
World's the one
that was
that
Baby
it
Metal,
kind
wasn't
of
it?
it kind of starts off slow, and then like it takes you a little bit of time to kind of like get it, because like that game kind of drags. Like you'll be hunting monsters like when you start that game for like 30 minutes. It's like, god damn, this feels fucking taking forever. That's because like Monster Hunter at the end of the game is just like get the best shit to where you can kill monsters in like 30 seconds or less. It is like one of those games where like when you know what you're doing, you just fucking wreck so much shit in that game and just grind. Like, because that's just what Monster Hunter is like ultimately you hunt the thing to grind for better shit, and then you grind that thing for better shit, so that way you can get to the next thing that has better shit.
Zelda does not have much grinding in it.
Yeah, Zelda is not really a grind kind of game.
Now, we've been talking for an hour and a half. If we've noticed, I apologize to anyone who wanted us to talk about the 2D games, because we like barely dabbled in them. I think I brought up Link to the Past like once,
I did
and I brought
recently
up
buy
the
the
first Zelda a couple times. I guess there's Zelda 2, which is like another black sheep, kind of like in the way Majora's Mask is. Majora's Mask for a different reason,
Yeah.
but Majora's Mask is like the black sheep of 3D, where Zelda 2 is the black sheep of the 2D series, where it's a
side-scroller.
side scroller and it's an RPG on top of it. You know, but I'm just not as these two aren't really versed on it at all.
Yeah. So,
You and I have dabbled in
I
NES.
am not
Zelda
as versed.
a
I am
little bit.
primarily a 3D Zelda player.
Yeah.
I enjoy 2D Zelda, but not to the same degree. I did really like Link to the Past and its sequel, A Link Between Worlds, however.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both really good. Actually, you would probably like A Link Between Worlds a lot because it's like a halfway step between Breath of the Wild and traditional. Where
No, I was actually going to mention that.
The temples can be done in any order. The ending still has to be last.
Yeah.
You can't just run straight again and like you can in Breath of the Wild. But the actual temples can be done in any order you want. Which is very unique.
Well, because what I like about Link to the Past, what little I know of it, is that it does follow in the footsteps of Zelda 1. Just building things up to where you get things in order to progress, which the first game does, but a little bit more freeform than how... I think the way people have said it, that Link to the Past does it in a bit more of a strict way. Not too much so, but enough to where then from there, it just keeps building to where the formula is born. Get this to do this, then you can go here. A Link to the
Past is kind of the first step into that formula.
Yeah, but where Link Between Worlds lies is kind of
first
the
step
inverse. Bringing it back out into what now we have Breath of the Wild and stuff.
Correct. So, yes, exactly. If you look at the very beginning and the end of Zelda, more free.
It's almost like freedom. A bookend in a way.
And then it kind of like, and then the middle of it, which is the majority of the series, is more of the Zelda formula that most people think of, yes.
Yeah. But I think, if you had to ask me, because I'm the one who's taught the least, which is fine, in this one, I knew I wasn't going to be at the forefront of this discussion, but if VidGames is the way that I get, because VidGames started not just for us to play the stuff we love, but for all of us to try and get into each other's games. I had you play CTR, Jerry played Spyro, I tried playing DMC, Dark Souls with Wes. We didn't finish those, but I've at least dabbled in it now, and I can say that, and maybe we'll go back to Devil May Cry at some point, and we'll have to figure all that stuff out. Zelda has been one that I've always been interested in because of all the mainline Nintendo stuff that's always represented everywhere. I've only been a Mario guy.
Because the thing is, like I was saying, kind of at the beginning, if it wasn't Mario, it would probably be Link.
Yeah.
Right? It is... Mario is number one. Well, okay, we're not going to talk about Pokemon. Okay, because Pokemon's huge.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay.
That's its own can of worms.
Mario, Zelda. Those are the flagships.
Yeah.
Right? But, yeah, so I remember when I was younger, I was always like, how can you like Nintendo so much and not have even touched one of their flagship series? But it makes sense because they're completely different games.
But even just considering my history, like I was saying at the beginning, where it's like, not necessarily that I was PlayStation at the forefront, but that is the truth. I played the games I played on there because I could have been introduced at such an early age to something like Final Fantasy or Legend of Dragoon or something else that was PlayStation, but was of an RPG
I never thought about it before that, but I've always considered my taste extremely broad. There's not too many genres that I just flat out don't like. I have my preferences, right? But you gotta remember, like you said, you grew up on Crash and things like that. My literal first two games, Mario 64, Ocarina of Time. Completely two different games, and I was introduced to them at the exact same time. And it's probably why I didn't really fall into a niche.
At the same time, and within the first 4 or 5 years of my life, they're all on PlayStation.
And then I slowly moved into Xbox and got into Halo. Right? They're completely different games as a child.
Crash, Tekken, CTR. Those are 3 completely different genres.
Uh-huh.
So, genres, even if they were part of the same franchise, I still got a taste of different types of gameplay. But they always... mechanically, the way they work and structurally, they were always very straightforward. There weren't very many games I played or just were exposed to where they had to extensively talk to me about how mechanics worked or remind me how mechanics worked.
That's why you've not played that many RPGs in general.
Yes. Because they're too slow for me. And I'm sort of an impatient person by nature when it comes to games. Mm-hmm. So, I just find it slow. I find it, padding or hand-holding where it's let me figure it out. That's why I like Breath of the Wild, because they just lets you figure it out. There are moments where you have to talk to people, sometimes to start mission side quests or whatever, that's fine. But I mean, again, I don't really want to, but he said it best. There's a thing I want to pull from Eager After Sequelitis where he says, having a world where people walk and talk is not the part that makes it feel dampening on the exploration experience. It's when that stuff is required for progression or story reasons, and they have to hammer it into you. This is how you're going to get from point A to point B. By doing that mission, we're going to talk to that guy and take this to this guy so this can open. And that's Zelda. Sometimes. But then there are other times, because I was playing Ocarina maybe 2 or so months ago when we were, you were watching me.
Maybe a little longer than that, but yeah.
Probably. Where I learned a couple things on my own because I was just like, okay, I need a fish for Jabu Jabu or something. And it's like, where the fuck? I haven't even seen any fucking fish around here. Little ones that I can grab. And I had bought something before, so I randomly had a jar. I was like, well, if I just empty it or do whatever, I'll have my jar. Cool. And learning it like that is something else that 3D Zeldas, especially in that middle area of all those main ones, do so well, where it's like, because you've said it too when you hint at us of what to do, like, well, look at what you have and see how you can use what you have.
Yeah, that's almost always the advice I give is look at everything in your arsenal. Kind of like a checklist. What can I do with that? Probably can't apply that here. What about that? Probably can't apply that here. That, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I can do this, That's all usually the advice I give is don't forget about the things in your arsenal, because that's something that a lot of bottles and stuff you try to keep in mind. That does, one, it forces you to think about each item individually so you can get to that solution faster. But two, because you're thinking of everything more critically, it puts you in the right mindset to think it that way. Where because if you
you're learning it yourself.
Yes, exactly.
By just going through what you have.
And that's kind of the thing is like,
it's still different from what I usually play, because
Yes.
I'm playing games where jump and charge into an enemy, jump and punch, jump and spin. But this is keep in the background what you have, because you can do many things with these different items.
yeah.
What you do and where you got to use it is pretty much up to you.
And like I was saying before, that's why I like the items in Zelda so much, because it's not just, look, I got a bigger blaster. I got the bow, now I can shoot enemies. Yes, I got the bow, but I can shoot enemies, just like I said. I can use it to solve puzzles. Now I can apply different types of magic to it later, in different variations of Zelda.
Yeah.
Right? Opens up a lot of things. Same thing with bombs. Combat opens up new areas. The hook shot, combat, opens up new areas, does things for puzzles, right? It's so much more than just like a typical RPG. This sword's better than this one, so I'm never going to use this again.
Yeah.
Right? This is something, once I get it, it's a straight upgrade in every way, in terms of my strength, in terms of my creativity as a player, as a way of how I explore the world. I mean, there's a big deal to find an item in a Zelda game. It's a big deal. It's one of the reasons why I like Zelda items so much, because it's so much more than just getting a better thing.
Watching you apply Zelda logic to a game that's not even Zelda is also really interesting, because I like how you were playing Blue Fire on Cosminiati, and you were just like, I have to defeat this thing, and there's a chest that leads to that door that I just passed up, huh? And it's exactly what happened. You're just like, I knew it.
Yeah. Yes. Speaking of, so since we're on the topic of Zelda, I guess I should just bring it up here.
Go watch Cosminiati, because Chase is doing content on that channel again.
I'm back for the first time in forever. And one of the first games I started was a game called Blue Fire.
Oh, yeah?
It looks very artistically like Wind Waker.
Ah.
You're not on a boat in the water.
Okay.
But
Before you get too
very
excited.
similar style. It is very heavily inspired by Zelda games.
Oh, yeah. I can see that.
It's basically if you took Zelda and made it a platformer, but it still holds all the Zelda mechanics. Really good. I love it. But it's a niche title. It's on several different platforms. It's on PlayStation and Nintendo Switch. I'm not sponsored or anything.
Oh yeah,
I just love
that
it.
kind of like ropes around for when we get done with the Uncharted series. I kind of just found out about this game on my own. It is a platformer. It's a little bit more story driven.
Wait. Do we want to use that?
We'll wait. But I told.
I do know what you're talking about.
I did tell Marcelo about it, and he was kind of surprised that I would mention something like that.
Well, because I had seen the game in question, like the artwork for it.
Mm-hmm.
I might have cut a trailer like a long ass time ago before you recommended it, but yeah. Well, we're not gonna say what it is just yet. We are like. From the session that we had just recorded last, from the time of this recording, like we are close to the end of Drake's Fortune. So once that's actually wrapped up, we're gonna go into that game. So people will be seeing it not very long after after this.
I will say this: it is a very beautiful game.
So I guess that'll be the last topic, and we'll probably wrap up everything. Is kind of since we brought up Blue Fire, is the inspiration that Zelda has had on other games. Because it's been a pretty impactful thing. We were talking about how Breath of the Wild has had a heavy impact on the open world genre.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time was the first game to include the to my knowledge, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the game that kind of streamlined the idea of targeting an enemy. And you're kind of like, right? Because Dark Souls, for example, Dark Souls, you target and then you can kind of strafe around him. Zelda was one of the first games to do Ocarina of Time specifically in 3D space. They called it Z targeting. You press the Z button, and then same thing. You walk onto that target, and then because a lot of games in 3D space, the really old games, 3D games, were kind of awkward to control. Ocarina of Time, still a little bit awkward, especially with the Nintendo 64 controller. But it made a lot of those things easier because the idea of Z targeting, instead of like, I'm in the middle of combat, things are happening, let me try to aim my bow. And it's like, nope, I can Z target. Chink. Probably not gonna miss.
Oh yeah.
Flying enemies, it's a little tough, but pretty much everything on the ground, it works almost flawlessly. And that's a mechanic that's used, like I said, in Dark Souls. It's used all over the place now. That idea of locking on to an enemy is used in
That's
all
why
kinds of games.
I also thought it was really funny how really early on, I believe it was probably the premiere episode of Rift Apart, where I told you locking on, strafing, but also still jumping to avoid.
That's one of my favorite things about
and
the game.
shooting, still shooting
The
your
fact
gun.
that you can do all of that at once is awesome. I love that about the game.
And every Ratchet's like that for the most part. Almost every, because Miharu had been going through and playing some of the older Ratchets, and they didn't have it at first. Strafing wasn't. I had thought from the very first Ratchet that it was there, but they had to introduce it slowly.
Yeah.
But when they did, yeah, they pretty much expanded on that very mechanic.
There were older games before Zelda. Like, Zelda didn't introduce keys and doors. There were older RPGs and things like that had those things in it. But Zelda is the first game that made it mainstream, exactly. It wasn't just, something that you found once in a while. It was like, right now, it's a common thing to be like, and maybe not necessarily key door, right? But you're going through, and like maybe like Tomb Raider or anything where like puzzles are a part of the game. Where you're like, shit, how do I open this door? That's a very common thing. Is it a switch? Is it a key? How do I progress? Lots of figuring out how to open up doors. Whether or not that's a good thing, that's up to you to decide. But
Master of unlocking. It's Resident Evil.
That's something that Zelda does all the time. Of course, a lot. It's had a big influence on dungeons in games. It's had a big influence on how bosses work in games. It's been a very influential
that's also
series for all kinds of 3D games.
Well, for 2D games
it was revolutionary for 2D as well, but I think especially for 3D because it did so many things right out of the gate.
That's why I think you'll like a couple of the Shantae games. Some of the earliest ones were kind of weird. The one that will always, Miharu and I will always say, because this is the one I introduced to her, was Pirate's Curse. It's like the direct middle of, we only have 5 games in the series right now, the smack in the middle, and it's the black sheep for many reasons that I don't have to talk about right here, but like, Pirate's Curse is the one to play for Shantae, because there is dungeoning. It's not quite as extensive as Zelda, but with how much experience of that type of gameplay you have under your belt, you're gonna notice the similarities, and I think you'll really like it because you have to go find your map, then you've got to go and figure out what keys go to what doors, what else you can find from there on out, getting the items that you're going to use to then get your the rooms where you find a new item. You cannot get out of that room until you use that item. You have to use that item right when you get it.
It forces you to learn how to use that
to get out of the room. Then from there, all kinds of stuff are open to you. You have to remember. But for something like Shantae, because it's on a smaller scale, it being 2D and it being not as expansive as something like Zelda, I found it easier to get around in a game like that with that sort of formula because there isn't a whole lot to remember. You do have to remember, oh, yeah, there's a thing here I saw, and I couldn't do it because there was a little area, like, oh, there's a switch, but there's this slim little thing that I can't, like, crawl or fit into. Oh, but you get the pistol where you can shoot into a straight line. Oh, yeah, I can use the pistol on that. You have to remember where that is and whatever, but once you do, it's like Zelda in that way.
Yeah. Zelda, you definitely... That's the thing, is if you just run through a room and just trying to find an exit, you're doing yourself a disservice. It's really important that even if you're not much you can do in that room, try your best to take note of what you see in that room.
Yeah.
Because if you get a new item and you don't remember any switches or anything, it's way harder. You're gonna end up running around trying to figure out how to apply it. But if you can just go, oh, wait a minute, I saw a hole here, or this wall was cracked, or this thing, I think I can do that. And so you really want to pay attention.
That's why having landmarks, and again, marrying that type of gameplay with visual markers and just really nice level design also. So it'll be easier for you to remember. Even in the real world, me driving, this is just a silly little weird off to the side thing. I used to remember location before I actually learned to drive. I was remembering streets and shit by landmarks or certain
Marcelo still does that.
fast
We'll be in
food
the car,
places.
and he'll be like, do you know the thing by the thing by the thing by the thing? And I'm like, bro, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Streets, motherfucker. Do you know them?
But now that I drive, I know things by street name. But it took me a while to get there. Because I'm a more visual person than remembering information like words. I don't know if that makes me dumb or just a different side of my brain.
No, it makes sense. I used to do the same thing. When you're little, when you're looking, it's not mandatory in your life to know what the street names are because it's not something that you really need to pay attention to be effective, right? Your mom gets you to the store. You just need to know how to get around the store, right? Right? But once you start driving, you're like, I don't know where anything is. And then and then as you start to do it more and more, you're like, oh, okay, I know the street names. I know how everything our store say because you're in a position where it's kind of necessary for you to, and it just starts to click more. And that's a common thing. I tease you for it, but that's a thing a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But likewise, that can apply to certain games that follow that formula of remembering where to go because you need to backtrack to there.
Yeah.
Sometimes the backtracking in and of itself is a whole part of the game and it's a mechanic, but like Banjo-Tooie or something. But in a game where it's like as simple as, oh, I just gotta get back to the beginning of this area, use the warp, go back to a different world. Okay, there's where I can use that thing now.
I know backtracking is oftentimes a thing that people do not like to see in a game. I think Zelda actually handles it fairly well, in my opinion. The reason for this is when I think backtracking is bad is think about it like this. I get through a level and I've completed it. I did everything. And now I go on the next level. I get the thing I need. And now I have to go back through the level I completed. So there's nothing new. It's going to be easy because I know where all the enemies are. I'm stronger now. So I can die hella easy. There's nothing new to do. Where in Zelda, I get to an area. Like, there's some stuff I can't do here. I can't break that wall. I can't do this. I can't do that. You get farther in the game, you get these items. And the next time you come back, even if there's backtracking, at least there's more to do now. So it's not like a completely just like a wash, right? At least as you return to areas, there's still new content to experience.
This is something that Breath of the Wild, the DLC kind of does. Especially with, like, when you get, like, the newer stuff. Because you don't, for, like, some of that stuff, you don't automatically get it. Like, the motorcycle. Like, you have to kind of go back to, like, the starting area. Do something there. That got added later on. And then you have to deal with a boss fight. And which is an added, just, experience. And then you get the motorcycle. And then it's just like, I don't need the stupid horse anymore. I could just spawn a motorcycle now. I don't have to look for a horse.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about what happened with Jasper.
Yeah. So for me, backtracking isn't inherently a bad thing. It just depends on how it's done.
Yeah.
If you can keep relevance in an area that you've been to, then it's okay, right? But the moment you're making me go through areas where there's nothing new for me to experience anymore, that is not good, right? And Zelda typically offers you some stuff to come back to, which helps alleviate a lot of backtracking that you may experience in some of the game. Okay, it's almost been 2 hours.
That's a lot of Zelda.
Final thoughts, likes, dislikes, comparisons, anything you wanted to say but didn't get a chance to, out of context, anything.
Well, about the backtracking, it'll take like not even a minute. Like, if you beat Spyro 1, because Spyro 1 is a super straightforward game, you can do everything. You don't gain new abilities. It's just learning how to use your abilities to get around the worlds that you go to. Spyro 2 does dabble in backtracking because you do learn or buy abilities that you need to progress. So you get bits like, there's a ladder here. I can't climb that yet. In World 2, you have to pay a character in order to learn how to climb. Then you can go back there and finish it up. So there's a bit of that in there. Which is, in and of itself, in the Spyro world, is debatable. But, I mean, it kind of follows what you're saying, sort of. To a smaller, rather, degree. Because it's not as open and as extensive as Zelda, but...
Because even if you still don't care for the system that I'm explaining, you can at least appreciate that it's not as bad, right?
Yeah.
At least there's things to do still. Exactly.
Plus backtracking, because in certain games I played, backtracking is like, you gotta remember where to go and how to get there. Like, again, Banjo-Tooie was notorious for it, and sometimes it's easy to get lost if you don't know the game very well, and the game requires you to have to go back to some odd 3 worlds back, but you gotta remember where in that massive hub world, where to go to get there, where to warp to get the closest to get there.
I was actually reading an article about Ocarina of Time. They were saying, you know how Navi is notoriously annoying and frustrating and tells you new stuff, right? A lot of people tease about that. They do the same thing with in Skyward Side Fee.
Yeah.
Skyward
Side.
Sword. But Fee, I don't know the excuse. Although they fixed it a lot in the new version, from what I understand.
Yeah, I never really got annoyed with V.
But Fee, the article actually said the reason... They actually intended her to be less annoying and smarter, but they said the reason why they ended up kind of going with the like more obvious dumb version is because, like you're saying, Zelda, as some of the stuff I've said, is a really hard game to get back to if you set it down for a little while.
Yeah.
It's easy to get lost. So if you make Navi go, hey, go here, then for someone who come back, it's a little easier to pick it back up and not feel like restarting.
It's the equivalent of a TV show, and then you cut to commercial, and then they'll explain what just happened before the commercial break. But that's there if you're tuning in and you flip to that channel and you're on commercial, so when the show comes back, they have to explain what just happened.
That's why when you're actively playing, Navi is annoying. But if you're someone who plays intermittently, Navi can actually be somewhat useful to you.
That does make sense.
Right. And that was kind of the idea. And so that's why it was actually a design choice that Navi was annoying. All right.
I mean, in that context, it makes sense. But when you're playing for long stretches, on the other hand of that, the other side of that, topic, how you say Zelda, especially something like Ocarina, is best played when you're doing a whole stretch before ending off for the day or whatever. Then you're going to be constantly hearing it. So, like, and there's no way to turn her off.
Yeah, and it's not like she's completely useless. Especially for a first-time person, she can help guide a little bit.
Yeah.
But,
Well, there were moments I remember finding where I was completely stuck and you weren't around to help. And then there she is in the corner. I can hear her, and then I go, hold on, shut up. Let me just see if I can find somewhere to go that I haven't been yet, or do something with something that I haven't even interacted with yet. And then I can't. And I'm like, it shouldn't say anything useful. Fine. Click. C button. What do you say? And she's like, maybe we should do the thing that Saria or whoever said. And I'm like, that's what I'm trying to do. What the fuck? You're not helping.
yeah, like I said, A little bit.
Yeah. I mean,
It gives you like a
okay.
very vague direction. Like,
Oh,
just
yeah.
enough to at least get you in the area, but after that, you're kind of on your own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, Midna is a much better companion.
Mhm.
Fee is a nice companion, but also annoying.
Like, sometimes I was like, all right, well, I kind of already know that, but think...
Master, your battery is dying.
Did you say that?
Yes.
Word
Yeah.
for word.
Not quite,
Okay.
but close.
Yeah.
I just imagine
alright,
Link's like, what
so-
the fuck do you
All right,
mean?
so we have an
Yeah,
actual
fourth wall
gameplay
break
reason
really hard.
for Navi to be annoying. What is your
the fuck is
exposition?
Fee's excuse?
Oh, no, what is your excuse for the exposition owl?
The what?
When you're going through his dialogue and then he's like, do you want to hear that again? Yes, fuck!
Oh my god, the owl!
Because he falls victim to that too. Chase
That
falls
thing.
victim
Yeah.
to that too.
If you watch my really old playthrough of it on Kazunyati,
He does it by accident, of course.
even on because I made a best of, and every time the owl comes up, literally I'm like minding my own business and like long on rants, and he flies over for like half a second, and I'm like, owl, fuck you.
All right, so what would be like the gameplay reason for the owl, or do you have nothing?
Nothing.
As far as I'm aware, he's just a dude that goes, hey,
Fuck you.
you're on a journey. That was cool.
Do you want to hear that again? And then it defaults to yes.
That's so God.
So annoying.
All right, I will tell you this
'Cause
grand story
I'm
about
not-
why you are
I-
doing
I-
this
I
vision.
just- I don't mind the stops quite as much as Marcelo, obviously, right? But when I do want to spam through it and it just cock blocks you like that, that's super annoying.
You just catch yourself in
I
this loop.
see you have picked. Listen to my story again.
It'd be like watching a 5-minute cutscene, being like, "Would you like to watch that again?" Yes. No.
Oh!
It does that in Mario Sunshine.
Why did it?
There is an
Yes!
unskippable tutorial cutscene where Flood's like, this is how to use me. Do you want to hear that shit again?
No.
And it's
Yeah,
unskippable?
some text in Ocarina of Time is skippable. Not a lot of it. When it comes to yeah.
What's that character's name? What's the owl's name, or does he not have a name?
I think it's actually supposed to be one of the first. It's not a spoiler.
It's Owl.
No,
Owl the Owl.
he's one of the sages, I think. I don't know that for sure. I've heard people say
Whoa,
this. But maybe not.
spoilers!
Maybe not. It never explains it to you.
He's just like, yeah, I'm a sage. Whatever, fucking deal with it. Want to hear that again?
I don't even necessarily know that's true. I think I might have just read that by some random fucker on the internet and remembered it for whatever reason.
It's one of those fan theories.
But I don't know.
Did you get all that? Is what he says.
Yeah. No, I hate that owl.
Well, guys, if you want to listen to this podcast all over again, it's 2 hours
Oh,
long.
it
Would you
is
like to?
Giboro.
Yes.
All right.
That's him. The annoying owl. The owl that I fucking hate.
The owl that the world hates.
Yeah, I don't think too many people think highly of the owl.
In the comments below, give us your
He
thoughts
also
on
shows up
Zelda.
in Majora's Mask. I'm guessing he does the same shit there. He does show up in Majora's Mask. It
Where
does
the
say.
hell is he appearing?
Well, imagine
I'm
if he
trying to
pulls
remember.
that same
Cameo
shit.
appearance.
Oh my god. Oh, that would be cool if he just shows up and does the same thing in Ocarina of Time, except for the fact that you have
actually
time
can't-
not on your
Hang
side.
on. Is there a thing? Let me see. Where?
He's just like, did you get all that? It's like, yes! Why is the clock going? I need to stop the moon! Stop!
Actually, hang on. Now I can't remember. Wait, no, that's not right. Majora's Mask. Where the fuck does he? Oh yes, he does appear. I forgot about that.
Does he do the same shit?
I think so, but I think you only run into him like the one time.
Okay.
I forgot he was even in the game. So clearly he's not as annoying in Majora's Mask as he is in Ocarina of Time.
Well, because if he was as annoying as it wasn't,
I would have remembered.
Yeah,
I've noticed
no,
that.
But
would
the
have
whole
made
time
more-
thing.
The whole time thing, yeah. Imagine
He's just
he's
wasting
talking to you, and the clock is going. It's like,
And it's already been a
hurry
whole
up!
day.
what do you mean you have another paragraph?
Oh well, it doesn't waste your time. Whenever you're in dialogue, time pauses.
Okay.
So
At least they thought ahead for
you
Thank
can't
God.
talk to somebody and then die.
that.
Right.
What if you cook?
I mean,
Time pauses when you're in
I
conversation.
bet someone made that a mod, where like
Zombie Link.
every time you speak, frickin' like the time just keeps on moving, even through dialogue and shit. I could see someone making a mod for that, just to be extra dickish. It's just like. It's like, you don't have time you don't have much time to talk with these people. Get it done.
We'll tune in next time, and we'll have some more discussions on the podcast.
Yes, if you have any additional thoughts, especially if it's 2D, because we didn't get into that, let us know, because I would like to hear about it and contribute and continue the conversation below.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, that'll do it for this one. Zelda. Da-da-da-da.
Praise the sun!
Actually, last thought. Really short. In Wind Waker, they make fun of that. He gets Wind Waker Toon Link gets the tunic and he holds it up like this, and then he's sitting in front of his grandma and he's like,
yeah, his face is just kind of like,
"What am I doing? Why am I doing this?"